and slam their palms against the fuselage of your aircraft, cheering for the decapitation strike against the Iranian leadership that they believe was a resounding success. In their eyes, you are a demigod of the skies, an invincible hero, returning from the jaws of death. But as the hydraulics hiss and the canopy creaks open, you violently rip off the oxygen mask that has been strangling your face, which is now drenched in a cold, oily sweat. You collapse forward over the narrow electronic control panel. Your stomach twists in violent rhythmic contractions, and you heave repeatedly into a nylon survival bag until nothing but bitter yellow bile burns your throat and spills through your teeth. Your entire body is trembling uncontrollably, and your bloodshot eyes remain vacant and glassed over with a haunting obsession. What truly lurked behind the infrared targeting lens last night that was powerful enough to crush the psyche of America's most elite war machine, leaving you this broken and pathetic? Go back 15 years in time. You are standing in a heavy, suffocating silence before a trifold American flag and a black and white photograph of your grandfather resting on the fireplace mantel. The memory of charred helicopter wreckage scattered across the Dash de Kavir Desert during Operation Eagle Claw in 1980 is a ghost that has haunted your entire childhood. The absence of the family's pillar brought with it stacks of medical bills and mortgage debt piled high on the dinner table. From the bedtime stories told in the dark, the seeds of hatred toward the Iranian Islamic regime were sown deep into your subconscious, merging with the military genes in your blood. As you grew, you threw yourself into the all-volunteer force as your only escape and a desperate means of survival. Inside the freezing air of the aviation selection test battery room, you pushed your brain's cognitive speed to the absolute limit to win a seat in a Navy fighter cockpit. Then came the hell of survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training. You spent weeks with a thick burlap sack over your head, deprived of sleep for 7 days at a time, your body rotting in the freezing mud, while screams and verbal abuse shattered your eardrums. The military machine clawed at you, systematically breaking your civilian identity and every ounce of your compassion. They replaced it with a frozen combat mindset, turning the act of pulling the trigger to extinguish a life into a conditioned reflex that bypasses the moral filters of your brain. You transformed into a lead pilot of the Special Operations Air Force's An Invisible Ghost. Returning home on leave, you smile as you pat your daughter's head and lie smoothly to your wife about a boring desk job at headquarters. No one knows that the hands tenderly carving the Sunday roast are actually a weapon of mass destruction, waiting for the day to be activated. A piercing alarm tears through the fleet's silence, and tactical red lights pulse rhythmically along the narrow steel corridors of the supercarrier USS Gerald R. Ford. You sprint into the squadron's ready room, where the air is thick with the smell of stale coffee and a suffocating high-voltage tension. On the massive screens of the Carrier Vessel Intelligence Center, thermal satellite imagery reveals a chilling reality. IRGC forces are feverishly loading chemical warheads onto solid-fuel Sejil 2 ballistic missile launchers. The commander of the air group steps onto the podium, slamming his command baton against the table with a crack that echoes like a gunshot. His voice steel-edged as he declares the commencement of Operation Epic Fury. A high-stakes bait is dangled before the room pilots who volunteer to lead the door-opening formation. The suicide run to punch through enemy air defenses will receive maximum hazardous duty pay. This comes with an aviation continuation pay bonus worth tens of thousands of dollars to be dispersed immediately, along with an accelerated promotion. The harsh light from the projector spills across your face, illuminating the cold calculation in your eyes. In your mind, the image of a foreclosure notice lying on your kitchen table back home flashes and then snaps into a horrifying overlay with your grandfather's charred helicopter in the 1980 desert. Your heart hammers against your ribs, fueled by a perfect convergence of greed and a long dormant thirst for blood. You grit your teeth, feeling the metallic taste of adrenaline, and thrust your hand into the air before anyone else can move. You stare at the mission contract, seeing only the path to the pedestal you have always craved. The pitch-black night of the Gulf of Oman is torn asunder by a brilliant orange jet blast as your F-35C screams off the electromagnetic aircraft launch system of the supercarrier USS Gerald R. Ford. Climbing to an altitude of 30,000 feet, You penetrate Iranian airspace in the absolute silence of stealth mode. Your primary objective, the early warning radar station and missile batteries at Hajiabad. Through your helmet-mounted display and forward-looking infrared sensors. The physical world shrinks into cold shades of blue-black and glowing geometric shapes. Everything feels detached, surreal, and clinical, as if you were playing a high-stakes tactical simulation game. You flick the target lock switch, your thumb squeezing the pickle button on the flight stick with cold precision. Pickle weapon away. You announce over the encrypted radio as two GBU-31V3 JDAM smart bunker busters detach from the internal weapons bay. Dozens of seconds later, splash echoes across the radio waves. On your display, brilliant white flashes bloom like silent weeping flowers, and the enemy's heat signatures evaporate without leaving a single trace. There are no screams, no smell of burning flesh, only the soulless beep of the system confirming the target is neutralized. Adrenaline surges through your chest, and a satisfied smirk pulls at your lips beneath the tight seal of your oxygen mask. Back on the carrier, you proudly stroke the squadron patch on your flight suit, your phone buzzing with a notification that the first installment of your combat bonus has been deposited. You feel the weight of power in your hands, a godlike control over life and death that is now fully validated by the cold, hard currency in your account. You stride back into the ready room of the supercarrier with the extreme confidence of a predator that has just tasted its first kill. The adrenaline from the Hajiabad strike is still coursing through your veins as the commander of the air group points to a new satellite map, circling a complex in the coastal city of Minab in thick, aggressive red. He growls that intelligence confirms this is a concealed underground bunker, housing Khorramshahr 4 ballistic missiles belonging to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the target that will decide the entire outcome of Operation Epic Fury. The blood contract is laid bare, complete this final strike, and you will receive the maximum combat bonus, a double promotion. Your chest thumps with a wild, intoxicating excitement. Without a single shred of doubt regarding the accuracy of the intelligence system, your mind is completely blinded by greed and a roaring fire of hatred. You tell yourself that this is the perfect moment of vengeance for your grandfather's death so many years ago, and simultaneously, the golden ticket that will forever erase every cent of debt waiting for you back home. You stare at the coordinate string on the screen, your eyes bloodshot with a fanaticism that craves nothing but to climb back into the cockpit of your F-35C and personally incinerate that entire area into ash. You grip your flight helmet, feeling the leather creak under your fingers, ready to personally burn that square on the map into blackened ash. Deepening your penetration into Iranian airspace within the deadly silence of the stratosphere, you hold your breath as you approach the Minab coordinates. You activate the electro-optical targeting system, and the high-resolution thermal camera lens zooms in on the ground target. A cold sweat drenches the back of your neck as you realize the structure is not a fortified underground bunker, but bears the distinct shape of a school. Dozens of tiny heat signatures are scattering across the courtyard, completely unarmed and devoid of any military formation. Your heart leaps into your throat, and you snap the emergency radio channel open. Eagle 1 calling AWACS target has multiple small heat signatures suspected children. Request immediate abort. Static crackles, followed by the ice-cold voice of the air traffic controller. Eagle 1 request denied. Enemy radar is locked onto the combat search and rescue helicopter wing, preparing to enter the airspace. 12 SEALs will burn to death if you hesitate. This is acceptable collateral damage. Drop the bombs now. The walls of the cockpit seem to close in on you. Thousands of hours of military conditioning surge forward, heavy and irresistible, overriding the frantic screaming of your own conscience. Your teeth grit until blood seeps from your lips, and your thumb slams down on the pickle button with a desperate, jerky motion. Bombs away. You stare blankly at the screen for 30 agonizing seconds of freefall. A brilliant white halo erupts a silent explosion that wipes 100 tiny heat signatures off the face of the Earth. You let out a long, hollow breath, your hands gripping the flight stick until they turn bone white. With a dry, constricted throat, you utter the soulless standard report, target destroyed. Returning to safe airspace, you perform a bone-jarring cable trap landing onto the deck of the USS Gerald R. Ford. But your mind is already numb, and your chest feels suffocatingly tight. The air boss screams into your headset, pulling you back to reality. Eagle 1, clear the landing area now. You walk into the debriefing room, where the footage from your targeting pod is replayed coldly on the large screen. Everyone stares at the pillars of black smoke. Not a single staff officer questions the tiny heat signatures or mentions the word civilians. A few veteran pilots clap you on the shoulder, using sick dark humor to offer praise. Well, that was a beautiful morning fireworks show. Those kids down there definitely got the day off school today. Your throat is bitter, but to mask the disgust clawing at your conscience, and to fit in, you force your facial muscles into a complicit smirk. The mission is confirmed as a resounding success, and the system immediately transfers a massive combat bonus into your account, accompanied by a special promotion. In the evening over a secure satellite link, your wife and daughter cheer with pride, calling you a great American hero. You manage a strained smile while looking at their faces, but you find yourself staring at your thumb, the one that pressed the button, noticing it won't stop twitching. You glance at the bank balance on your phone, then back to the screen trying to focus on the laughter of your daughter. You tighten your grip on the cold metal of the terminal, waiting for the surge of happiness you paid for to finally arrive. But all you feel is a growing leaden emptiness where your heart used to beat. At the crack of dawn, on March 2nd, 2026, General Quarters sirens wail with a bone-chilling screech through every steel compartment of the supercarrier USS Gerald R. Ford. Iran has officially launched its massive counteroffensive operation True Promise 4, firing hundreds of medium-range ballistic missiles that streak across the night sky like jagged red scars, raining fire down on American and Allied positions. The once silent ocean is shattered by the thunderous roar of interceptor systems and the thick, suffocating smoke of battle. An emergency scramble order is broadcast to the entire air wing. Inside the paraloft, you frantically search for Rookie, the young wingman who flew beside you during the Minab bombing just 2 days ago. He had been absent from the morning briefing after accidentally accessing an uncensored battle damage assessment report. The target yesterday contained no missiles, only the mangled bodies of over 100 schoolgirls. You kick open the restroom door, intending to urge him to follow orders and launch, but the sight that greets you freezes the very blood in your veins. Rookie is hanging limply from a fire suppression pipe, strangled by the reinforced cord of his own G-suit, his eyes wide and fixed in a state of ultimate glassy horror. On the floor beneath his dangling boots lies the crumpled, sweat-stained paper printed with the Minab coordinates. You reach out to touch the cold steel of the doorframe, but your knees buckle, and the sound of the combat sirens begins to warp into a low rhythmic thumping in your ears. You stand there paralyzed in the flickering red light, staring at the coordinate sheet on the floor, while the cockpit of your jet suddenly feels like a waiting coffin. The death of Rookie is swiftly swept aside by the command system, coldly classified as a non-combat casualty. There is not even a single minute of silence on the deck, which is already shuddering under the constant roar of anti-aircraft alarms. To fill the personnel shortage caused by the blistering operation tempo of the optimized fleet response plan, your rest orders are revoked. You are forced to squeeze back into your G-suit launching mission after mission for continuous combat air patrols. Physical burnout, combined with the massive weight of your moral injury, begins to claw at your central nervous system. In the dead of night over the Persian Gulf, as your F-35C screams at Mach 1.2, the boundary between reality and nightmare shatters. On your helmet-mounted display, green thermal noise signals suddenly distort and coalesce into the charred shapes of the Minab girls clawing at your cockpit glass. Simultaneously, the radar warning receiver emits a piercing beep signaling a lock-on, but your exhausted eardrums twist that electronic frequency into the agonizing screams and wailing sobs from the ruins of that school. A wave of hyper-arousal and pure panic collapses your vestibular system entirely. You fall into a classic fighter pilot's state of spatial disorientation. You can no longer distinguish the sky from the black sea below. In a frantic madness to escape the ghostly voices, you slam the flight stick forward, plunging the nose of your aircraft directly towards the pitch-black ocean. Only when the terrain avoidance warning system shrieks, "Pull up," do you snap back, jerking the stick into an 8G pull that nearly crushes your chest, saving the $100 million jet as it skims the waves by a fraction of an inch. You skim the waves by a few feet, the salt spray almost reaching the belly of your jet, while your heart hammers at 180 beats per minute against a chest that feels hollow. You gasp for air, but each breath tastes like cold recycled metal through the mask dry and suffocating. Your eyes are fixed on the glowing electronic displays, but the cockpit no longer feels like a seat of power. It is a pressurized high-tech tomb, closing in on you with every rhythmic beep of the sensors. Returning from the brink of death, after your spatial disorientation, you stagger into the sickbay, greeted by the sterile, blinding white glow of fluorescent lights deep within the bowels of the supercarrier. Your eyes are sunken with dark circles, and your hands tremble uncontrollably as you seek out the flight surgeon. You have only one goal: to be grounded, officially labeled as duties not to include flying, to escape that haunted cockpit forever. But as you sit across from the military doctor, the suffocating fear of the military stigma chokes the words in your throat. The terror of having your wings stripped away and being shipped home branded as a mental case prevents you from confessing the bloody hallucinations or the crushing moral injury. You lie. You desperately plead for just a few days of rest, citing nothing but severe insomnia and exhaustion. The doctor glances at your file, well aware that you are spiraling into burnout, but the fleet's operational tempo is at a state of red alert. Without a shred of comfort, he coldly refuses to record a case of debilitating illness to avoid disrupting the campaign's progress. Sliding open a steel drawer, the doctor pushes a blister pack of Go Pills dextroamphetamine stimulants reserved for fighter pilots toward you, followed by a razor-sharp command. Take 2 pills before takeoff. Keep your head clear. The fleet has no replacement for you, Eagle 1. Clutching the toxic pills in your hand, you stand paralyzed in the corridor, realizing a brutal truth: the military does not see you as a human being in need of healing. They see you only as a biological component of the F-35C, and components only need a bit of grease, the stimulants, to keep the killing machine running. Every exit has been sealed shut by those tiny white pills. Fully absorbed by the side effects of the 2 Go Pills, your nervous system detonates into a state of manic euphoria, a cruel cocktail mixed with physical exhaustion and a massive weight of moral injury. You are shoved back into the cockpit of your F-35C, screaming into a night sky ablaze with the crisscrossing traces of anti-aircraft fire. Your mission this time is a head-on confrontation with Iran's Bavar 373 missile network, armed with the advanced Sayad 4B interceptors standing on high alert. As you penetrate the interceptor envelope, the chemical cocktail in your blood fuses with the haunting imagery in your mind. On your helmet-mounted display, the tactical data distorts into jagged streaks of deep crimson, and the clouds outside seem to twist into the faces of the Minab girls, their mouths open in silent rhythmic screams. Suddenly, the cockpit erupts in flashing red. The radar warning receiver shrieks with a piercing continuous "Deedle deedle," signaling an active radar hardlock on your airframe. The death knell reaches your eardrums and morphs into a high-pitched collective wail. The radio explodes with the panicked shouting of your wingman and the AWACS command, "Eagle 1 SAM launch." It is coming straight for you. Break formation, deploy chaff, and flares now. But your body refuses to respond. Your hand rests limply on the flight stick, your thumb hovering over the flare release button, frozen in a state of total clinical paralysis. You stare through the canopy at the growing streak of white fire tearing through the dark towards you, watching the monster in the flight suit wait for the impact. The massive fireball of the Sayad 4B missile tears through the night, expanding rapidly as it reflects brilliantly off your cockpit canopy. Instead of desperately jerking the flight stick or pulling the ejection seat handle, your hands fall completely limp.